Well, hi everybody. Hopefully that's me live now. I'm just having a quick look to see if there's anybody lurking in the room. I think there's one person. Don't know who it is, but if you are there, just drop me a little comment in the chat section. Just let me know that you can see me and hear me okay. Appreciate it takes time for people to join as they get the notifications or not in YouTube. But be useful just to know that the mic is working and the camera is working. Hi, Heather. It's just me and you right now by the look of it. Oh, here we go. There's some more starting to come in. Looks report, hi. I was a bit worried about this live stream because about half an hour ago, I got the automatic update come on the computer. So I'm like watching, it's like the clock countdown as how many percent it was uploading and then installing. And it was getting closer and closer to 7 o'clock. So I was getting a little bit worried. I had visions of not being able to come on, but thankfully it did finish. And here we go. Thank you for the thumbs up. Looks like it's going to be a slow and steady start. There's only a couple of us here right now, but at least we're here, and you can see and hear me, so that's good. The thumbnail for the live stream had a couple of different pictures on there. There was a picture of the China, Taiwan, with the little battleships or aircraft carriers going around the island. There was the inevitable, because it's full on in the mainstream media now, of Russia and Ukraine. And then, of course, there was the ever-present virus. And I deliberately put those three things on there because over the certainly last year, and perhaps a little bit longer with the virus, those things have just been in and out of the mainstream media as the number one things that we need to be concerned about. And certainly over the last probably about 4 or 5 months, the Ukraine thing has become even bigger news. And you don't have to go anywhere now on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or the mainstream TV news media without seeing some pundit popping up and telling you that it's World War III and it's all going to end badly for the whole world and Russia's definitely going to invade and so on and so forth. So I deliberately picked those three things to go on the thumbnail, along with the comment about what should we be really thinking about. And actually those three things, I would suggest, are probably not the main things that we should be thinking about. Yes, they're important to some degree or other, depending on which part of the world you're actually living in. But they're not really the main things. So that's really what I wanted to touch on today. What things should we really be thinking about? I wouldn't say worrying about, because we shouldn't get to that worry stage. We can be a little bit concerned from time to time, because we are, about lots of different things, but not to the anxiety and stress that if you watch all of these media reports, it would be easy to fall into. You could sit there and just retreat into your shell and think, oh my God, the world's ending, I can't do anything, I'll just sit here and wait for the big bang. So yeah, the two superpower little conflicts that are going on, and have been forever really, if you look back in your history. This isn't a new thing. The China-Taiwan thing certainly isn't new. Been going on for decades. And the Russia-Ukraine thing isn't new either. And indeed, that has been going on in some shape or form for decades, ever since Ukraine became independent after the fall of the Soviet Union. So this is not new stuff. And we as Western countries, if I can use that term, bear full responsibility for all of this, and indeed a whole host of other stuff. But I'll resist the temptation to go off on a bit of a tangent about how all of this came to pass. So no, they're not the big things really that are going to impact us. I don't really anticipate that either China or Russia are going to suddenly kick off and we'll have World War III. I'm not saying that China might not at some point decide to take on Taiwan, and I'm not saying that Russia might not go into Ukraine at some point in the future, because they might. Who knows, really? But I don't anticipate a World War III. I don't anticipate hordes of Western troops from all of the different Western nations all jumping on boats and planes and going off to Ukraine or Taiwan any day soon. What could happen as an impact if they did do that wouldn't necessarily be the full-on military sort of Iraq, Afghanistan style war footing. I think in terms of impacting us in the countries that we live in, the things that we really ought to be thinking about are slightly different. It would be things like cyber attacks, which have been in the media and increasingly in the media over the last few years. And perhaps in the case of Russia, availability of gas, energy supply for Western Europe. They're already, if you look at the media reports, they're already very anxious about that, which is why I'm fairly confident that European countries wouldn't wade into Ukraine if something did kick off, because they need the gas. In case of China, supply chain, we've already seen with COVID how any disruption of the Chinese economy and supply chain has a massive, massive effect on the West. So if there was a conflict in Taiwan or Ukraine at any point in the future, I wouldn't focus too much on the military aspect. I would focus on those other things. So that being said, and me not wanting to go into the World War III scenarios, I think the real threats are a lot closer to home, and I've alluded to this in lots and lots of previous videos. And for those of you who are here in the chat, it'll be interesting for seeing your comments on the chat as we go through as to what you think the big issues really are, what concerns you, and as we get further into the chat, things that you might be thinking about this year, whether that's things that concern you or things that you want to achieve this year in preparation for stuff that might happen. So yeah, the real threats, I think, are much closer to home. It's not Ukraine and it's not Taiwan, and it isn't really COVID. We've had that for 2 years now, so everybody knows how big a threat COVID is or isn't. The actual threat from COVID wasn't the virus itself. It was the impact that government had with its various mandates and the screwing up of the world supply chain. That's what really impacted us. It wasn't the virus at all. So in terms of the things that are closer to home now, yes, supply chain is certainly an issue. There is a massive lag from COVID. Bayou Prepper, hi. We've got more than 3 in the chat, so that's good. Yeah, the supply chain is still lingering and in really bad shape. Things aren't going to get better with the supply chain anytime soon. And indeed, if any of this warmongering style stuff was to rear its head properly in Ukraine or Taiwan, yes, that would have another big impact on the supply chain. So supply chain is something that we really do need to keep an eye on and try and plan ahead, because we know what happened at the start of COVID. Everybody went out and panic bought in the shops. Shelves were emptied. It wouldn't take much, with the way that the media is constantly hyping all of these different issues, for there to be another run on the supermarkets. So it just really doesn't make sense to try and plan ahead and to build up your stocks of everything, not just food, but all of the everyday essentials, because that supply chain is not going to get fixed anytime soon. It is so complex, and it's like a little spider's web that goes across the entire globe. It's not just our shipping route from China. Stuff goes backwards and forwards all the time. You'll be amazed how many things are created in parts in lots of countries. They're then shipped across to China or other Asian countries to be assembled and then shipped back again. The materials for all of the stuff that we have, pretty much, including food. And there was some bizarre article I saw recently where chicken is shipped to China to get processed into meals or other chicken products to get shipped back again. I mean, who ships a chicken around the world, for God's sake? Just do it in your country. But that's the way the supply chain works now. It is a massive web across the entire globe. So yeah, if we are going to focus on things to think about, supply chain is definitely one of those. We know that there are problems in availability, so it makes complete sense to try and stock up on things now, whilst they are still available. One other thing that has made the media, it kind of comes and goes, and people try, or politicians try to deflect from it, is this dreaded inflation business. Student trader, hi. We've touched on this in previous videos this year, and indeed last year for that matter, because inflation has been going up gradually all the way through last year, and it's certainly peaking now this year. It didn't get too much media attention last year because they were too busy with COVID and supply chain, but it has caught the attention of the media this year. And indeed, now you can't turn on a TV now without somebody talking about inflation. It's a global thing. It's not just one particular country. All countries are suffering from it, some more than others, but it's not escaped us here in the West, where it's 20 and 30-year highs for inflation. So not only are things difficult to get hold of because of supply chain issues, they're costing us more. And again, just like supply chain, once this starts, this breakdown from the normal economics, it's not something that you can turn around in a day, a week, a month, or even a year. This is going to grind on through 2022. So when we talk about supply chain issues and stocking up, not only is that a hedge against us suddenly finding they're not available in the shops, it's also a hedge against going to the shops and finding that £1 can of meat that you bought last week is now £1.20. And then the week after it's £1.40, and so on and so forth. So yeah, inflation, definitely one of the big things that we should be thinking about. Kind of linked to both of those things, supply chain issues and inflation, is the subject of this potential economic collapse. The financial market going down, companies going out of business, unemployment rising, and people's savings or pension plans being wiped out because the stock market's crashed. It's difficult, really, to predict because governments have lots of mechanisms that they try and use to manage their economy. The big problem over the last few years is that they had an existing problem whereby they were printing money to try and prop up the stock market and to prop up the big companies. Then COVID hit, and they suddenly found that not only did they have to support business, they also had to support people because people were losing their jobs. They were being forced to take time off work because they were testing positive or they had COVID or whatever. So the actual economies of the majority of countries around the world, again, it's not just a Western thing. Hi, Nelly. It's a global thing. And that now has made mainstream media news since probably Christmas time. when the Christmas sales weren't as good as companies thought they were, and when the real news about inflation started to come out, government started realizing that they just couldn't continue with business as usual and continue just printing more and more and more and more money, whether that's to prop the banks up or to give out in stimulus to individual people within their country. So if you've been looking at the news media recently, here in the UK, you'll have seen the Bank of England coming out saying that they've got to get a handle on this inflation problem. It's now much bigger than they thought it was going to be and much longer lasting than thought it would be. And the public, quite rightly, are kicking off because when they go to the shops, they're noticing the prices are going up, their energy bills are going up, fuel for the cars going up. And it's going up in large percentage increases. It's really noticeable. It's not the odd pence here and there. It's now end of the month, they're looking at tens, 20s, hundreds of pounds increase when they add all of their costs together. So UK government has decided they've got to do something. Bank of England announced interest rate rises, which is the main way that governments, or the main tool that governments use to try and tackle inflation. If they put interest rates up, that stops people borrowing so much money, which means they're not quite spending so much money, and gradually it cools down. Likewise in America, they've announced not quite that they're putting up interest rates now, because they haven't. They've decided that they're going to do it in March, but they've sent the signal to people and told them, in fact, just this week, they've told them quite firmly that yes, it's not a bluff. We are actually going to go ahead and do this. So everybody is going to have the effect of interest rate rises at some point, which kind of brings me to the next point, which is debt. Global debt. Isaac, hi. I'll come back to Boris in a minute. I'll come back to your comment shortly, before I lose my train of thought. Yeah, debt. If you've got it, I would suggest that you take a long, hard look and try and, in whatever way you can, reduce that. The main way that this normally impacts people is on credit card bills and mortgages, which most people will have. If they haven't got a house of their own and they're renting, chances are they'll have a credit card. And if you're really unlucky, you've got both, a mortgage and a credit card. So those are going to go up. You've already been tipped off. Here in the UK, we've already seen it. We've had our first increase in interest rates, and we're due another one this month. So now's the time to start thinking about debt in a positive way, in terms of how can you reduce and hopefully get rid of that debt. Final thing in terms of things to think about, and that's kind of interwoven into lots of stuff that we've talked about so far, and it's probably the biggie in terms of prepping, and that's food. We've certainly seen problems during the COVID period with the availability of food. Lots of different reasons for that. We've had natural weather phenomena around the world, so floods, fires, tornadoes. We've had pest problems, all of which have impacted the food supply chain from the actual field through to the supermarket. Cost of energy, we talked about this, inflation. Energy costs have gone up massively, and that impacts all the way through the food supply chain, from the cost of the fuel that goes in the farmer's tractor, through the shipping costs, through the factory production costs, through more shipping costs to the supermarket. So energy cost, or the rise in energy prices, is having a massive impact on food. There's lots of pressure on the food supply chain as well from government, under the guise of saving the planet. We've got to get rid of all those terrible carbon-producing animals that we all eat. And of course, with inflation, you've got price rise after price rise. So it doesn't matter which bit of cost through that supply chain is going up, that inflation is impacting on every single bit of that, whether it's the fuel in the farmer's tractor, that's going up, both in terms of availability of fuel and inflation on the price of the fuel, through the manufacturing process, wage rise, that's impacting on inflation, as we've had problems with the labour market. It goes all the way through the chain. So in terms of food, there's lots of different vectors which are affecting both availability and pricing of food. So if you want another thing to think about, and you're not already thinking about food, I would really strongly recommend that you do start thinking about food. It's not going to go down in price anytime soon. So before I move on to what I'm thinking about personally, let's have a quick look in the comments, because I'm conscious that a few people have popped comments in there. So student trader thought it's smart to buy more stuff you already use. Yep, it is definitely a smart idea, particularly now with all these different global issues that are either happening now or could potentially happen in the near future. The alarm didn't alarm Nelly, but you're here. Isaac, your comment. I try and avoid specific politics, but since you're talking about the UK and I'm in the UK, do I want Boris to lead the nation? The trouble with politics, which is why I tend not to talk about it, it's a really divisive subject globally. And the trouble with politics in pretty much all of the bigger countries nowadays is that you have two parties. Whereas historically you'd have 3, 4, 5, in some countries, God, you have 10, 20 parties. If you take a look at an Asian national election or a Middle Eastern, mind you, I haven't said that, Middle East is probably not a good example, but lots of other countries have lots of political parties. And some European countries have many political parties, but here in UK, US, good examples, we have two. And generally it's a bit of a game between the two. They claim to be from different political perspectives and offering different things, but in reality they're generally offering exactly the same thing. And they just take it in turns. So one party will win, the other one will slag that party off for the 4-year, 5-year election cycle, convince the public that they're terrible and that their own party can do things much better. You have a change and it's back to the same 4 years, 5 years of the other side slagging them off and nothing really dramatically happening. In terms of Ukraine specifically, Boris is doing what a lot of Western politicians are doing. They're following the Americans. And apologies to our American viewers, I'm not having a go at you, but the American government currently is extremely hawkish. Lots of fighting talk coming out, lots of moving of weaponry and troops around the place, not necessarily moving troops to Ukraine, but talking about stationing them in nearby countries. Certainly lots of weapon sales going on. So to answer your question directly, Isaac, Boris, in terms of Ukraine, no, because he is just jumping in with both feet into antagonizing the Russians rather than doing something constructive to avert a potential crisis. I hope that answers your question. Nelly, Ukraine's been split by US infiltration like they always do. Russia is moving its gun closer so that the Ukraine civil war doesn't spill over. I said earlier, right at the start of this live stream, that the Ukraine story is a long story, and it is. This isn't something that just happened recently. Yes, the Russians moved into Crimea recently. I forget when it was now. Was it 2016? 18, I can't remember. It's a few years ago that they moved into Crimea. But the history goes a lot further back than that. The Russians are only bothered about, they're not bothered about invading Ukraine to take over Ukraine and steal whatever happens to be in Ukraine, because they've got enough of what's in Ukraine in Russia. Ukraine's a big country, but Russia is an enormous country. And there's nothing in Ukraine that the Russians really don't already have in their own countries. So it's not about land grab per se. The Crimea is a little bit, because that's naval port access. But it's more about combating what they perceive as being the buildup of troops on their border. And instead of recognizing that and accepting that and going, all right, do you know what? Yeah, we get your point. So we're not going to do that. Western countries have done exactly the opposite. They've actually continued moving more and more and more and more troops and weaponry onto that border. And there's been a big push, both politically, to change the mindset of the Ukraine politics or political scene. And also the move to get, or to talk about, Ukraine joining the European Union and joining NATO, which Russia definitely doesn't want. So there is a long story behind this. It's not just a land grab by Russia. There is a whole big story behind this, and we are managing it very poorly, I would say. When I say we, I mean Western governments, not we as individual people. But the point about the three things I put on the thumbnail for this video, the Russia, Ukraine, the China, Taiwan, and the COVID thing, the key thing really to stress there is there's nothing that we as individuals can do about any of those things. We are not running the government, as much as we might like to think that our tick in the ballot box meant that we were running the government. We're not. It doesn't matter which party it is either. Government is running the government, and they're doing it in their own interest. And we can't physically change whether Putin will or won't invade Ukraine. We can't change whether the West will or won't deploy troops. We can complain about it if they do, or they don't, however your mindset is. But we can't physically, as individuals, do anything. All we can do is prepare ourselves for what the aftermath might be. Same with China and Taiwan. We can't physically do anything to change what the Chinese government might or might do, and what Western governments might or might do in response to that. And the same with COVID. We can't physically change COVID and kill it in its tracks, despite all these different jabs that people are being told to take. Nor can we change what the government response was, which was pretty shocking. We've destroyed our economy off the back of something that has a less than 0.01% kill rate. We've just totally destroyed it. So again, we can't physically do anything as individuals about that. All we can do is prepare. So I guess the overriding message in the video today is those big things, they're not what we should really be worrying about. We shouldn't be worrying whether Ukraine is going to get invaded or Taiwan's going to get invaded. Yes, think about the potential consequences. It won't be Russian troops marching down the streets of your city, for sure, unless you live in Kiev, perhaps. It might be a bit more subtle, though, with your cyber attacks or your supply chain disruption or your energy price increases. So we ought to be thinking about those other things, not potential World War III. Everyone's talking about Ukraine now. And just want to see if there's anything that I can pick up on. Yeah, Nellie's emphasising the point I was making. When I say Western, I mean Western governments rather than Western people. The people of the country aren't the ones that are running around trying to wind up Putin, or I forget his name now, Chinese leader. Xi Jinping, I think it is, or pronounced something like that. Yeah, we can't impact on what our government does. Only an election cycle, and unfortunately, as we have two-party politics, it doesn't make a whole host of difference which of the two you actually vote for nowadays. Politicians nowadays are all out of the same university and the same mould. Nelly feels hungry every time I say Kiev. I've actually got chicken Kievs in the freezer. But I don't think chicken Kievs actually came from Kiev. Oh, we've got a Russian comment coming in. I don't know if that's... I'm guessing that's spam. Because I don't honestly think I've got any Russian viewers. I know some Russians, but they don't watch my YouTube videos. If anybody's got any extra comments about those main three themes, the China, Taiwan, the Russia, Kiev, or the you have to be a bit careful when you're talking about the COVID thing, because it's dead easy to get your YouTube channel kicked off YouTube. We've got a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? We've got a lot of people who will not hesitate to report a channel if it doesn't follow their narrative, particularly in respect of COVID. So you have to be a little bit careful. Nelly's on form today. My Kiev came from Iceland, not the country. For those who are not in the UK, Iceland is a chain store that sells frozen food in the UK. So for the benefit of our non-UK viewers. So the chicken Kiev, Ukraine, came from Iceland, a supermarket. Yeah, so if nobody's got any more comments about those three things, which are actually the things we shouldn't really be thinking about. We should be thinking about that whole list of other stuff that I said. What am I personally thinking about? And then you can chip in with your comments as to whether what I'm thinking about is right or wrong, or what you're thinking about. Because I would like to open up this to you. You're the people that have taken the time to come and watch this. And I'm sure you've got a view. And I'm sure you're doing something. If you're watching a prepping channel and you're still on here after 33 minutes, I'm guessing you are prepping to some degree. Otherwise, you'd have got bored and gone somewhere else, watch a cat video or something. So what am I thinking about? You probably know, if you're a long-term channel viewer, which you all are at the minute. Just bear with me a second, because I've not seen this one before. SAS Media, watching from Canada. Love the channel. Have you heard about the trucker convoy? Yes, I have. And in fact, I've been watching lots and lots of clips on YouTube. There are quite a few YouTubers that have been posting clips. There was one called Pinball Preparedness, who I had to have a bit of a chuckle. He put a load of video clips that I think he'd got them from Facebook, Instagram, and it was showing the trucks going down the highway and people with banners supporting the truck drivers. And he'd done it to the theme tune of the old Smokey and the Bandit movie. I won't sing the song, but you know, we got ourselves a convoy. And I was having a bit of a nostalgic flashback as I was listening to that and watching these convoys of trucks. You have to stand up for these guys, because at the end of the day, they're getting slaughtered with these mandates, and they're just having their livelihoods taken away from them. You know, all these truck drivers that routinely cross from the States into Canada and vice versa, because of the old vaccine mandates, they've been stopped from crossing the border. So, you know, you're taking away that person's job and livelihood. And these guys, a lot of them are self-employed. They've bought their own truck, so they'll have some substantial bills to pay. And government is just wiping that out and saying, I don't care. And that's not fair. So yes, I have seen that, and good luck to the guys, the truck drivers. I hope that people start seeing a bit of sense and they can get back to business as usual. Sorry, I digress. But having seen somebody new, I just wanted to say hi to them and answer their questions straight away. Dragonfly Nebs starting the garden. That's what they're thinking about. I'm coming on to that right now, funnily enough. So yeah, what am I thinking of doing? Regular viewers will know I've been talking about moving house. I am actively looking for somewhere else to live. Where I live now actually is fairly quiet. It's a small town. I say small, it's probably about, I don't know, less than 10,000 here. And it's what used to be, I think, 4 little tiny villages that gradually over the years, as they've grown out, they've kind of merged into this one. So it is fairly rural. It is fairly quiet. We don't have any huge issues. I think littering and speeding vehicles are the big debatable topics in the village about what people complain about. However, having said that, I've noticed over the last couple of years there seems to be an dramatic increase in petty crime, which wasn't really prevalent before. Now, whether that's people here or whether that's people coming in from the outside, opportunist, I don't know. But yeah, I am actively looking to move. My house, technically, where I live now, is technically sold. I agreed an asking price. I agreed an offer price, but it takes forever here in the UK to go through the process of lawyers and estate agents to get the house sold. I'm not in a desperate rush. I do have places I can go and park myself with family, so I'm in no desperate rush. But I want to be, the reason I want to move is I want to be that little bit more rural than I am now. Ideally, it would be a house on its own, but my budget won't stretch to that. So more rural, I'll have to settle for that. Be more self-sufficient, and by that I mean off the grid as much as I can. So here I don't have wood burning stove here. I would love to have one, but I can't here because of local regulations. I don't have enough roof space here really for an off-grid solar system. So I would like my next place to have the possibility to do those things. Doubtful I could do it immediately because it's an expense, but that would be the ambition, to find somewhere a little bit more rural that I could over time convert sufficiently to be more off-grid and sustainable or self-sustaining. I'm thinking about planting food. So who was it that said food? Dragonfly Neb, yeah. In fact, as if by magic, I've got seeds here. I was looking at them before I came on. I've also got some sweet potatoes, which I'm going to be starting off probably next week. You'll have seen a video I did previously about those. Now I know how to do it. I'm going with a vengeance this year to do that. So I am already thinking about planting food, what kind of food and when I can plant. I'm also connected with food, thinking about watering systems. The one I had last year worked to a degree, but not as efficiently and as well as I had anticipated it would. It's all a learning curve. So having learned from last year, I'm going to adapt that slightly to make it a little bit easier for me this year. I've also got more water than I had last year. And regular viewers will know I've added to my rainwater harvesting storage tanks. I was very close, that close last year to running out. Fingers crossed this year, not so, because I've added to that. I'm thinking about upgrading the cabin now that I have full planning permission. I don't need to be quite so covert, perhaps, as I was before. I don't need to be worried about somebody to come in to tell me to knock it down. So having experimented as well through this last year, whether that's with the solar system, and I expanded that, you remember, whether it's with the water system, whether it's with heating, you remember I installed my diesel heater. On the subject of diesel heaters, sorry for going off on a bit of a tangent. Sandra Campbell, just finished our fence, now we can get a cow. I would love to have a cow, but again, I'm going off on a tangent. My very first job while I was waiting to go in the army, aged 16, I worked on a farm, a dairy farm, and they take a lot of looking after cows, and you have to milk them every single day. You can't say, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. They have to be milked. So until I'm in such a position as I'm going to be on the land every day, all day, a cow is a bit beyond me, but I would love to have. That's kind of preempted something I was going to talk about later. But yeah, I would love gas prices for truckers, wiping them out. Somebody else saying they don't have the acreage for beef. Sandra moved 2 years ago to a 5 acre. Yeah. Again, I would love 5 acres. But having said that, you have to manage it. And I'm struggling with 1.5 on my own. I've just noticed another Russian comment. This is definitely spam, guys, which is why I'm getting rid of it. It's one of these, click on this link and we'll redirect you to some spurious website somewhere. Nelly, concentrating on goats for meat and dairy. Do you know what? You've been looking at my little list, haven't you? It's down here. Where did I get to? Upgrading the cabin. Yeah. So I've got a few plans, things that I want to do. A little bit more cladding, a little bit more insulation, a little bit of a change around. So you'll see that during this year. But I'm thinking about that now. Too cold and miserable to be to do now, today, this weekend. But I'm in that planning stage. I'm in that thinking about what it is I want to do and making little notes and drawings and such like. Chickens have done really well this year. I've been really pleased with the way that they've adapted to the new surroundings. They're all getting on with each other, apart from one's a little bit henpecked, but not to the degree that she was 5-6 months ago. They're getting used to me. I'm getting used to them. At some point, they'll be getting a little bit more space outside of that coop, or the pen to the coop. I've been nervous of letting them out. As the weather improves, I'm going to put a little bit more fencing up. Might be temporary fencing in the early stages, just see how they get on. I don't want them flying across and attacking the neighbours or disappearing off across the road. But yeah, I'll be at some point expanding on the chickens, and probably at some point expanding to use for meat as well as eggs. I know that might upset some people. Including some people that I know, but long-term ambition, yeah, meat and eggs. Similarly, the bees, they didn't quite produce the honey that I thought they might have. Well, not thought, hoped they might have this year. And I've been a bit cautious with them. I've left everything in the hive. I've even put food in the hive. But hopefully, come March, April, that's the natural time when they'll start looking to swarm and split. So I'm going to have to get my mate Simon. If you're watching, hi Simon. You're not here in the comments, but you might be on the replay. Yeah, at some point, March, April, I'm hoping that I can actually split off my hive and create a second hive and gradually do that over coming years. And then finally, which Nelly's already touched on, I've mentioned goats in a few different videos. At some point during the year, I'm going to make a little plan as to how I could house, and they will definitely need quite robust fencing installing. So I've got to figure out where is the best place to do that, and do a little bit of research on the type of goat to be buying, because I want a dual purpose meat and milk. Initially, it would be milk that would be my focus. But never say never. If it come to the crunch and we had a major something hit the fan scenario, having worked and lived in the Middle East, they eat a lot of goat there, and it is tasty. So at some point, you never know. If it was really that bad, then in addition to the milk, they'd be providing meat as well. But that's a long way off. I'm still in the early stages of thinking about all of this stuff. So that's what I'm thinking about right now. I'm not thinking about World War III. I'm thinking about the consequences of COVID, supply chain, inflation, availability of food, weather events we've had, which take time to impact on the supply chain. We'll see those effects coming through the supply chain this year. I have no doubt about that. Countries are already hoarding, exporting countries. So yeah, I'm thinking about those things. I guess really what I'm saying is now's the time to get busy, thinking about all of these things, the real things that we should be thinking about, and thinking about where are you in terms of your prepping journey. What is your stage? Where are you at? Are you well prepared, fully prepared, not prepared? Where do you sit on the scale? And have a little bit of a think about the stuff that I've been talking about in the live stream today. Don't focus on the World War III with China and Russia, because God forbid, but I don't think that's coming anytime soon. Skirmish, perhaps, but again, not anytime soon. The ones that are doing the big talking and threatening are actually not going to be sending troops anywhere into a conflict zone with China or Russia. They're just not. They don't have the capacity, and the public, given the debacle in Afghanistan and Iraq, were there to try and vote it through their parliaments. I'm pretty certain you would see mass protest. We did with Libya and Syria here in the UK. There was lots of talk about going into Syria, and you'll remember, if you can think back to that time, the public said no, not in our name, and the politicians quickly binned that idea. Russia and China, different story anyway. Public wouldn't stand for it, but in reality, Western countries, even if you got NATO, they would struggle with one of those countries to win, let alone two. So World War III, no, forget that. Focus on the other stuff, and get busy. Think about where you are on your journey. Who do you have around you? What kind of people? Do you have people that you know in your local area? Do you have friends and family in another area that could support you? You could go to them if there was a big issue. They could come to you if there was a big issue in their area. And what do you want to do this year? It's early days, January still. It's not too late to start doing your New Year's resolutions if you haven't done them already. What do you want to do? Have a little think. We've got 10 minutes because I normally do an hour and no more. So let's have a little look through the comments again. Feel free to chuck them all in if you've got stuff to say now. Now's your chance. Lots of people talking about managing their acres. No, are you talking about that Russian thing, Nelly, when you say just discovered it's a hacking code? I didn't see what was in the comments before. Too many hawks to let my chickens out. I've noticed an awful lot. I don't know what kind of hawk, buzzard, eagle. That's not an eagle. But I've seen a massive increase in the number of big birds of prey, not little kestrels. These are some kind of buzzard. They're really quite big wingspans. I've noticed that they must be loving the area where I am, or the field is, because you would see the odd one now and again. But now, pretty much any given day, I can look up and I'll see one somewhere around. So they're obviously breeding well. Randomize and polls. SAS, seeing prices going up, trying to stock up as much as I can. You just have to. There is enough cheap food still in the supermarkets for your staples. Yes, prices are going up, and significantly going up over the last year or so. But your basic bulk dried foods, your rice, your various types of beans and pulses, oats, your flour, it is still available, and it is still affordable. And I'm not saying go out and buy 50 kilos of rice and beans and flour all in a one, because most people, if you're anything like me, you just go day to day, week to week, month to month. You don't have the financial capacity to go out and just throw, hundreds or thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever, into a specific project. So just every time you go to the supermarket, just add a bag of rice, add a bag of flour, whatever it happens to be. And you'd be surprised how quickly over the weeks and then the months, it does soon build up, and it's not a big expense to buy those basic staples. They're still pretty affordable. I did notice, though, that the supermarket, regular viewers will know, I buy 1 kilo bags of rice. They're easy, they're cheap, they vacuum pack easily, and they store easily. And I used to be able to get them from 2 different supermarket chains here in the UK. So UK viewers, that was Tesco and Aldi, both the same price, 45 pence for a kilo bag. Aldi has not had any of those in. It must be about 5 months, maybe 6 months now. And Tesco, it's intermittent. Sometimes they have, sometimes they don't have. So yeah, it is still there, but it might not be next month or in 2 months' time. So now there's never been a more important time to start thinking about what you need to do, and more than that, actually doing something, no matter how small that is. And that goes for planting as well. If you've not planted before, have a go this year. Just do something small scale. Even if you've just got a balcony, you can still put pots on your balcony. You can still grow something. It's the experience, really, because a lot of people just think, oh, buy a bag of seeds and that's me, seed prep's done. Actually getting those seeds to grow, if you've watched my journey, you'll know it's not, you can't just chuck a seed in the ground and you guarantee it's going to grow, because a lot of time they don't. Or if they do, something will eat them before you do, as I know far too well. Oh my God. They want us thinking of war, not the economy. They do, Sandra. Yeah. All of this is political hype and posturing. I've actually been to war. So I wouldn't wish war on anybody, whether you're in the military or whether you're a civilian on the receiving end. It's not nice. And it destroys a country. If you take a look at how Libya used to be, how Syria used to be, how Iraq used to be, in terms of infrastructure development, availability of social services for the population, availability of food, energy, and look at them now. Those countries have been destroyed. And we're talking years and decades ago in some cases that this all went off. You can't recover from that in a year or 5 years or 10 years. Nobody wants it. And nobody wants it over trivia. I mean, all of this posturing about, oh, if you go there, we'll do this, and if you don't do this, we'll do that. It's all political. It's nothing to do with improving the life of the people in Ukraine or Taiwan. It's not about defending those people, because they won't. They won't send troops in. I guarantee that. It would be a suicide mission, and you would end up with a World War III. It's all about politics and trying to wind up the people that you politically don't like, and that's both sides. They all do it, but it's not about the good of the people, their own people, or the people that they pretend that they're concerned with. Sorry, I'm kind of going off into politics, and I don't like to do that. Not in a public forum, anyway. Think about feed for your animals. Yep. Just because they're animals doesn't mean that we don't need to buy food for them, because we do. Whether that's chickens, cats, dogs, or rabbits, or whatever you happen to have. I've been deliberately stocking a little bit more than usual. I've not seen, apart from once, there was once I went and they didn't have the feed in, but then the following week they did. But as a bit of a hedge for that, I have added, I've got enough now, certainly, to get me through into spring, certainly. And if necessary, I could always supplement that with other things if I thought there was an issue with availability. So yeah, I just keep topping up and maintaining a little stockpile. I don't have to have, what have I got? 60, 65 kilos. And I don't need to hold that much. I've only got 7 chickens. But at least I know I won't run out. If for a month there was no supply, I wouldn't be worried. If there was 2 months, I still wouldn't be that worried. If it was 3, I'd start to get a little bit concerned, but then I'd be planting stuff for them to eat and letting them free range around. Cat and dog food is hard to find. Where are you then, Dragonfly Neb? I've noticed less choice in the supermarkets of everything, pretty much. Whereas you'd find 6 different brands of, I don't know, tissues, body wash. You have shelves and shelves of all these different flavors and varieties and pack sizes. I've noticed that there aren't as many shelves and there aren't as many selections of brand or pack size. It's definitely, availability has gone down. I think companies are focusing on, instead of doing a very, very small amount of 10 different varieties, they're reducing it to 1 or 2 varieties to get the volume out, if that makes sense. Over-the-counter meds, that is really difficult here. If you're in US or North America, Canadian Prepper put an article out, or a YouTube video out. Prescription meds are extremely difficult to get hold of. But if you look up Canadian Prepper, he did a YouTube video which is relevant to North America. I think it was called JAS Medical or something like that. But if you look at his recent videos, it's very, very recent, within the last week or 2. There is an online company that you can go to get your prescription medication more easily, shall we say. And it's not pet or animal meds, it's proper human meds. But we don't have that here in the UK, unfortunately. There is a route, if you're in the UK, if you pop into mainland Europe, there are several countries there that you can just go to the pharmacy and say, I'll have a packet of this, please. And if you've got the name, then they will generally give it to you. Or you can always go to Asia on holiday this year. Once we start flying again, India, Thailand, you can get prescription meds there without prescription, pretty much anything you want for next to no money. But here in the UK, you can't. really. You can't even get the animal antibiotics here. Having said that, if anybody does know in the UK they've got some secret supply, then let us all know where it is, because I've looked and can't find. Chicken feed comes in sealed sacks. Corn mix doesn't. Just on the subject of chicken food, Nelly, I don't know what you do. I mean, I buy layers pellets from the farm shop, but I also buy bags of mixed seed and corn from the discount shops, like here in the UK. So that be like B&M's, Home Bargains, places like that. Comes in a 20 kilo sack. It's about £6, which is cheaper than layers pellets. Not quite packed as nutritionally, but a lot of variety, and it is good for them. And you're saving £2 to £3 per bag. So when you see me on the videos, I give them that mixed seed or mixed corn, and then put layers pellets in the feeders. And I'm trying to spread the cost and reduce it down. Gareth, hi. Better late than never. It'll be on replay, or I hope it will. A couple of people talking about pet food shortages. I'm not sure where you're all from. I've noticed the big bags. I mean, not having dogs and cats, it's not something I buy, but having bought these bags of mixed corn, which is essentially bird seed, it's just lots of different types of seed. It's in the same aisle as the pet stuff. So sometimes I notice the big bags of pet food. And I think that's a bit similar to what I was talking about earlier. I think manufacturers are reducing the variety of what they make and focusing on one or two specific products and putting all the production effort into that. So you're getting stuff in volume, but you're not getting the variety. Everybody's talking about dog food shortages. Getting antibiotics in the UK very difficult. Yeah, Lady Lexi, you're absolutely right. So unless you're going to have a trip to Europe or the Far East anytime soon, it's just a problem that we've got here, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Governments are really sensitive about antibiotics and medication in general. They want to keep the market cornered to their official channels and get all the sales. That can't be any other reason for it. Yeah, fish antibiotics, yeah, can't get those here either. Okay, well, we've been on for an hour, guys and girls, so if anybody has got anything that they want to throw out there question wise for me, now's your chance. Lady Lexi's friend's an air hostess and gets me them from Mexico. So you've got a secret supplier. Dragonflies in the US. Okay. Yeah, if you've got any questions, and guys and girls, please throw them in now. If not, I'll start winding up. It is difficult to do more than an hour. I end up with a really hoarse voice by the end of it, need a cup of coffee. And of course, in the UK, it's getting on. It's 8 o'clock already. I'll be going to bed soon. Busy day at the field tomorrow. Yeah, so nobody's put any comments or questions out. Thank you all. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and sit with me for the last hour. And I always appreciate when you do watch the videos, like and subscribe to the channel. When I'm on YouTube, I'll be doing a video over the weekend for sure. If I get enough people requesting the live stream, I mean, live streams, it takes a bit of time to set up. You wouldn't believe the palaver I've got of getting my computer set up to do this. I'm doing it on my PC rather than my mobile phone. And of course, getting the time right to get the maximum number of people happy and able to pile into the live stream, because we do have people from a variety of different countries, and there's quite a big time difference between UK, US, UK, Australia. Well, hell of a time difference there. But yeah, if more people do request, then I will try and do more live streams. But for now, for today, thanks for coming in. Really do appreciate it. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please do stay safe and well. Have a little think about the real things you should be thinking about, and thinking about what you might want to do this year. So thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.